All right, I said I was going to do a little bit more in depth on the multi-class, and I'm going to. I said I was going to do it. I'm going to do it. That's how you do it. And as I was double checking under Dragonslayer, it says you take the most restrictive of both classes. And I had thought in my previous video that, hey, that's just like AD&D did it. And then I double checked the original first edition under Fighter Magic User, and it doesn't really give you a thing. An over broad thing in the general description. It goes through the restrictions per each class combination, which comes down to being an elf issue, because only elves can be fighter magic users and half elves. So the multi-class character, as per the first edition books, assumes only non or demi-human characters can be multi-class, and only certain class combinations are possible depending on the race of the character. Although they're listed in section dealing with each race of character, multi-class character possibilities are also shown below. Blah, blah, blah. Cleric combinations. And it goes back. There's only one class that can be like Cleric Thief, and I think at that time it was the Half-Elf, right? With its horrible cap of like 5th or 4th level for Cleric, right? So when you get down to Fighter Magic User, it says combination allows excellent armor protection, the use of weaponry and spells. Hit points are good on the average. Elves and half-elves may be Fighter Magic User. So this is not really a multi-class issue as much as it is a elf conversation. And when you compare it versus second edition, it says you can cast spells if you're an elf and chain. Otherwise you can't cast spells. So I think our foggy memories, right? I think our memory of not being able to cast spells in armor started with 2E. And not 1E. It makes sense. But also, I remember having fighter magic users in our party in armor playing first edition. So, as anything, it goes back to how you want to run your game. You want to make it more BX? Do that. If you want to make it more advanced, 1E, you make it the other. I'm going to allow Elf and Chain. You can cast spells in it. So Elf and Chain is highly praised by fighter magic users because you can cast a spell in it. Otherwise, you got to wear robes. Just how it is. And there's lots of magical protection out there in the form of rings, bracers of defense. You would still have to be able to use a shield, I believe, but not while casting. Clerics can cast with shield and armor on. So that's really, if you really double down on class protection, the wizard being called the most powerful class when you get higher levels shouldn't be wearing armor, right? It's a drawback. I can't use a shield. If you're a wizard, I'd let you, fighter magic user, I'd let you cast with a shield. It's just something on your arms, and when you're using a shield, you grip it. When you're not using a shield, if you're letting your hand loose, you can move your arm around with a shield. But it's useless for protection. It's not that good for protection. It's all about holding it out. Not too close, guys. Hold it out. These people holding it right next to their body. It's not how you really want to use a shield. But I digress. So, and when we asked, and as I mentioned this earlier, you get the descriptions, you get feedback right from one of my players when we read out that description, that you take all the penalties, which would only affect an elfin character, of which half my party is elves, of course. Gillespie responds, like the guidelines suggest, you defer to the most restrictive of the class options, but note that, like the rules suggest, none of this is written in stone. You can do what you want in your game. We're going as raw as possible with this game, and that's from the Dragonslayer Facebook group. So I'm in the official RPG group on there, and I'm going to be more active in it. I never had one question answered by an admin or anybody who actually wrote the game in the OSC channel. But lots of players always chimed in how they did their table, and that's how we always do it. It's the old school. You do it. Here's how I do it on my table. And that's the whole premise of my fucking channel. Here's how I do it, and we're having pretty much fun, right? So I'm going to keep the as rules listed, right? But it really only affects elves. But then it also means you're not using off-the-shelf armor and still casting all your spells with all the armor. That made elves the default in a lot of the BX games I was running. The BX with advanced options, elf, 60 gold pieces for plat, which I think is way too low. So I like the 400 gold for plate mail, and that should be your first big jump. And by third level, not first or second, by third level, you have enough money to armor up into plate. Otherwise, everybody's running around chain, at best, maybe less. So, yeah, the restrictions in AD&D on spellcasting are quite harsh when you really start paying attention to them. And in Dragonslayer, it's a little looser, but the armor restrictions tend to be paramount. So we're going to go with that for my game. At least raw for a little bit. See how it works. No one's really playing a fighter magic user. I have an elven wizard, which quite honestly, if elven chain can be used by magic users, I believe. I had to double check, but elfin chain is the rare magic. It's made out of mithril. So you're basically saying mithril coat, which weighs as much as regular clothing, doesn't interfere with spellcasting. So it makes a mundane item, an item that's not actually got pluses on it, highly sought after and highly valuable, which is the way it should be. The lost technology of the bygone age or whatever. Or something only the best elfin heroes actually have access to. Which I like that spin on it. And we're going to go with that. But as I was going through the individual class restrictions of AD&D, it made me laugh because I've forgotten a lot of them because people played it. Haven't played it in a long time. We've been playing BX for so long, it's just like elves get everything. And so Dragonslayer is got some of the most restrictive multi-class rulings out there. The higher hit die for hit die division, though, makes it a little easier. I am tempted to make only one house roll when it comes to hit die. Instead of doing the actual division and getting fractions, I'm thinking about just having the die, and you roll the die. So a D10 would be a D5, and D4 would be a D2. It's quicker and easier in my opinion. And I did that in my OSC game, and it moved things along for leveling a little quicker. People in basic math kill me, and I get it. If we're going to use fractions and decimal points, then by all means track the decimal points, and when they roll you over to another full hit point, they count. Who wants to put decimal points on their hit points? But we will see. This is fun, guys. This is a fun game. Don't overthink it. But we're keeping the raw armor restrictions as is. If you want to be a wizard who can, because it makes it kind of weird for a wizard then, because your weapon restrictions are pretty rough. I mean, you're a fighter, but you only use daggers and staff and sling. It seems kind of lame. Maybe I should think about this a little bit more. Because in AD&D, you get the best of both worlds. But if you're a wizard with no armor up front, swinging that sword, that's rough. That's dangerous. That is super dangerous. And okay. Only the core classes can multi-class in Labyrinth in Dragonslayer. All hit points gained by level classes are divided by 2 or 3 to a minimum of 1. It doesn't have so it's only the core classes, cleric, fighter, magic user, and thief that can multi. There's no multi-classing ranger and stuff like that, which you could do in AD&D, especially with Unearthed Arcana. When class abilities conflict, you're restricted to the more limiting of the two. A fighter cleric must use blunt weapons. A magic cleric will wear no armor, and it's limited to blunt mage weapons. A fighter thief is limited to the armor weapons of the thief class, and so on. That would mean a fighter magic user will be limited to no armor and only the weapons that the wizard could use. That is rough. which means we probably won't see any fighter magic users at all. Means you could be pretty rough with the staff, though. Very, very rough with the staff. Maybe some cleaving people with the staff. Which makes the staff of striking make sense then, right? Outside of a cleric, why would a wizard ever use a staff of striking except he has no choice? The thief class has pretty much any weapon you can use anyway, unless you're limited by your race, because they also limit no two-handed melee weapons for elves in the in Dragonslayer, because there's max height of what 5.5 foot, short of 6 or something like that, and you're small in frame compared to a human. Only the Cyclops people, half orcs, and humans get to use the big two-handed weapons. You can still use the two-handed bow though. Use that big longbow. So that's and the final word on that under this two paragraphs on multi-class characters. The maze controller is the final arbiter of multi-class abilities. I do like the armor restriction because then you don't have an army of fighter magic users. But you have elven fighters who are really good elven fighters. And then you have the elven mages who are really good elven mages. And you have this rare cadre of elven fighter magic users who will beat your ass with a staff. This makes sense, right? Makes sense. It's all about class protection on another level as well. So when you use race plus class, your class protection kind of weakens when you have multi-class characters. But a multi-class character is sort of a hybrid. And the hybrid classes in Dragonslayer are a little bit more developed. So this is not necessarily a BX clone, as more of it is an AD&D clone, a light AD&D. It's in that little niche right between them. It has enough depth to be unique. And I'll talk about it more as I run the game. As I run the game, I'm going to talk about Dragonslayer more, because I'm running it. And we will be able to see how it plays out. Period. I should go over each individual class as well, which I'm going to. Over each class and where they made a few minor changes versus other editions of the greatest role-playing game against other retro clones that do it differently, and where it is in a niche different than BX. Where BX is more baseline, and this has got a little bit more crunch. Not much, just a little. But yeah, game well, game often, y'all.